In a small town in Indiana, there was a particular aisle in the local Walmart that everyone avoided. It was aisle 13, and it was said to be cursed. Strange things always seemed to happen there, products falling off shelves, lights flickering, and an overwhelming sense of dread that would wash over anyone who walked through it. One evening, a new employee named Jenny was tasked with restocking aisle 13. She had heard the stories but didn't believe in curses. She grabbed her cart and started down the aisle, humming to herself to break the eerie silence. As she worked, she felt a sudden chill, like a cold breeze passing through. She looked around but saw nothing. Moments later, the overhead lights began to flicker. Jenny felt a pang of fear but tried to brush it off. She continued stocking the shelves, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Suddenly, a box of cereal flew off the shelf and hit her in the back. She spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. She quickly put the box back and moved further down the aisle. As she reached for another product, she felt something cold and clammy grab her wrist. She screamed and jerked her hand away, dropping the item on the floor. Terrified, Jenny ran out of the aisle, nearly colliding with her manager. She explained what had happened, and the manager decided to check the security cameras. The footage showed Jenny working in the aisle, but when the cereal box fell, a shadowy figure could be seen standing behind her, its hand reaching out to grab her wrist. The figure was dark and indistinct, like a shadow without a source. The manager, who had worked at the store for years, confessed that strange occurrences had been happening in aisle 13 for as long as he could remember. Employees and customers alike had reported similar experiences, and no one could explain why. Jenny refused to work in aisle 13 again, and the story of the cursed aisle spread throughout the town. The local Walmart became known as the store with the haunted aisle, and customers avoided it whenever possible. Despite efforts to cleanse the area, the strange occurrences continued, leaving everyone to wonder about the true nature of the curse that plagued aisle 13. These 4 horrifying true Walmart horror stories serve as a chilling reminder that even the most mundane places can harbor dark and terrifying secrets. From haunted night shifts and possessed shopping carts to phantom greeters and cursed aisles, these tales remind us that sometimes the most unexpected places can be the setting for our worst nightmares.
Late-night shifts at Walmart can be eerie, especially in a 24-hour store where the aisles stretch out like dark, cavernous mazes. Lisa had been working the night shift for 6 months and had experienced her share of odd occurrences, but nothing could have prepared her for the chilling encounter she would face one night. It started like any other shift. Lisa was stocking shelves in the electronics section when she heard a faint whisper. She paused, thinking it was one of her colleagues playing a prank, but as she listened closely, she realized the whispers were coming from the baby monitors on display. The monitors, which were all turned off, suddenly flickered to life, displaying static and eerie, disembodied voices. Lisa's heart raced as she tried to make sense of what she was hearing. She leaned in closer, and among the static, she distinctly heard a child's voice saying, "Mommy, help me." Chills ran down her spine. She called out to her coworker Mike, who was working in the next aisle. When he arrived, the monitors abruptly shut off, leaving them both in an unsettling silence. As the night progressed, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She kept seeing fleeting shadows out of the corner of her eye and hearing faint footsteps following her down the aisles. She brushed it off as paranoia until she reached the toy section. There, she found a single doll lying in the middle of the aisle. It was an old-fashioned porcelain doll with a cracked face and lifeless eyes. She picked it up and placed it back on the shelf, but as she turned to walk away, the doll fell to the floor with a loud crash. Lisa picked it up again, and this time she heard a faint giggle behind her. Terrified, Lisa ran to the security office to check the surveillance cameras. As she and Mike reviewed the footage, they saw something that made their blood run cold. The cameras showed the doll moving on its own, falling off the shelf repeatedly, and the shadows they had seen were not just figments of their imagination. They saw dark, shadowy figures lurking behind Lisa, always just out of sight. Unable to take it anymore, Lisa quit her job the next day, convinced that the Walmart was haunted. She never returned, but her story spread among the night shift workers, who now refused to go into the toy section alone.
George had been a greeter at Walmart for over 10 years. He loved his job, chatting with customers and welcoming them to the store. But one cold winter evening, he had an encounter that would change his life forever. It was a slow night, with only a few customers trickling in. George stood by the entrance, exchanging pleasantries with a couple of regulars. As he turned to greet a new customer, he saw a tall, thin man with hollow eyes and a pale complexion. The man wore a vintage suit, completely out of place in the modern setting. "Welcome to Walmart," George said, but the man didn't respond. He simply stared at George with a vacant expression. Feeling unnerved, George tried again, but the man walked past him without a word. George watched him disappear into the store, but something felt off. He couldn't shake the feeling of dread that washed over him. Minutes later, George heard a woman scream from the clothing section. He rushed over to find a young woman, pale and trembling, pointing towards the fitting rooms. "He just vanished," she cried. "The man in the suit! He walked into the fitting room and disappeared!" George's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the fitting rooms. They were empty. He checked the security cameras with the store manager, and what they saw was chilling. The footage showed the man in the suit walking through the entrance, but instead of a continuous shot, the man flickered like an old film reel with missing frames. He entered the fitting room, and then he was gone, vanished without a trace. The encounter left George deeply unsettled. Over the next few weeks, more customers and employees reported seeing the man in the suit. He would appear and disappear without warning, leaving a trail of fear in his wake. George eventually quit his job, unable to bear the constant anxiety and fear of encountering the phantom greeter again. The man in the suit became a ghost story among the Walmart employees, a chilling reminder of the eerie occurrences that sometimes plagued the store.
It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when Karen, a regular Walmart shopper, encountered something truly terrifying. She was pushing her cart through the frozen food aisle when she felt an inexplicable heaviness in the air. She shrugged it off and continued shopping, but soon she noticed her cart had a mind of its own. The cart began to pull to the left, despite her efforts to steer it straight. Frustrated, she checked the wheels but found nothing wrong. As she continued shopping, the cart's movements became more erratic, pulling sharply and nearly toppling over several times. Karen started to feel uneasy, but she was determined to finish her shopping. As she approached the dairy section, the cart abruptly stopped, refusing to move forward. She tried to push it, but it felt as if an invisible force was holding it back. Suddenly, the cart jerked forward, almost knocking her off her feet. It rolled down the aisle on its own, picking up speed. Karen chased after it, shouting for help. The cart came to an abrupt stop in front of the dairy coolers. As she reached it, the cooler doors flew open, and cartons of milk and yogurt containers flew out, smashing onto the floor. Karen screamed and ran to find an employee. When she returned with a manager, the chaos had ceased. The cart was standing still, and the dairy section was in disarray. The manager checked the security footage, and what they saw was chilling. The footage showed the cart moving on its own, and the cooler doors opening without any human intervention. They also saw a dark shadow hovering near the cart, following Karen through the store. Shaken, Karen left the store immediately and vowed never to return. The incident became a local legend, and employees reported similar occurrences with other carts, leading many to believe that something sinister was haunting the store.